It is 8:30, it's time for the weekly meeting of the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors. We do have an agenda in front of us. We will move item 5 right behind item 1. Any other additions, corrections, deletions?
I have none, and make a motion to approve as presented.
I will second. It's been moved and second. Further discussion, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item 5, approval of construction administration service proposal. Tom, you're up.
All right, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Good deal. All right, here's a copy of it. Okay. And when we get down to actually approving it, here's copy fuel. Here's the hard copy I need to sign in the back. Back in April of 2011, we entered into an agreement with you guys for the design of this project. And that agreement was about this thick and had all the terms and conditions and everything else, all the legal stuff associated with it. This is an amendment to that. So what this does is it leaves the terms and conditions the same as it was before, and just amends our scope of work to include construction administration services. There's a whole list of things that you guys can see that we do, but what I want you to really focus on is on the second page. The price is right there, it's $530,000, but the line after that. In general, the above scope of work and associated fee is for all-inclusive construction administration services. If I were to bullet point every single little thing that we did, it'd probably be 50 pages long. What I want to do is highlight the big major things, but what I want to tell you guys is that this proposed scope of work and fee covers everything associated with the project, all-inclusive, given the existing project schedule, okay? So if something weird happens, and either between Valent or the project, whatever, and we have to extend the schedule, we work on time and materials for you guys. That means hourly rates, so if the project goes out longer, we're going to have to come back to you guys. As it stands right now, I've got the schedules for both the contractors, and they're going to be using up basically all their allotted time. There's still a possibility that we'll use less money, because like I said, we're hourly rates, so if we work less, we'll charge less. But based on their schedules right now, it looks like they're going to go pretty much to the end of the project. Now, a great winter could change that, okay? But like I said, we only charge for the time we spend on a particular project. Of pretty big importance here is the fact that since we've had this delay in the beginning, the contractor schedules are overlapping on critical issues, which means that we are anticipating only having one guy back and forth, but there's probably a 3 or 4 week overlap where we're going to have 2 guys out here. And that's noted in here, that we're going to have a part-time guy out here when needed because the workload is too much at one spot to get him to the other spot. So that's included in here as well. But like I said, otherwise it's everything I can possibly think of this project, other than if there's an schedule extension. So, and that includes dealing with Valent, going to all their meetings to keep them on guys up to speed, everything. So, but like I said, there's some major bullet items up there. I just wanted you guys to be aware that, it's, hey, there's no postage on here. Yeah, postage is included. I mean, all that stuff's part of this thing, okay?
All inclusive.
All inclusive, unless the project schedule changes.
So we're basically right on schedule, a little ahead.
I think we're right on schedule. Even though we've had this delay in the beginning, Henkel's schedule looks like they're not going to have to go beyond. We already extended their schedule 3 weeks, but it looks like they're still going to get stuff done a little bit earlier than that 3 weeks. Now that could give and take a little bit, but yeah, we're still on track. No phenomenal getting stuff done, 6 months early like they did the bridge over here, but that ain't gonna happen. But looks like we're on track to be done.
I make a motion to approve the construction administration service proposal for the pre-treatment and wastewater treatment facility.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion. Hearing none, Voigtlander.
Aye.
Walk, aye, motion carried.
Okay. There's no other updates for today, but I'll be back in next week.
22nd?
23rd. Right?
Mm-hmm.
23rd.
So we don't get any rain, they should get it way ahead.
You know, you'd like to think so, but with the equipment and stuff like that, sometimes it'll be time. All right, guys, take care. Thank you
Thank
much.
you.
We'll see you.
We'll go back to item 2, County Attorney General discussion. Morning, Sheriff Beaver.
Good morning.
I have a big pile this morning. Kevin, how do you pronounce the last name?
Knievel?
Knievel. He was a dispatcher at the Sheriff's Department. He was also a highway patrolman. He was terminated from his highway patrolman position after serving there 20, 25 years. For misconduct, based upon what he had done, Sheriff Beaver visited with me, and the Sheriff's Department made the decision to terminate him as well from his position there. He has filed for unemployment, which there's been a hearing set on that, I think, or...
The hearing date is not set yet,
Okay,
but
but we've contested
responded.
that.
Yeah.
He's also requested a name-clearing hearing, which the code says he's got a right to. Basically, what that amounts to is he gets to come in front of the Board of Supervisors and tell his side of the story. Now, the code's clear, is all it is a name-clearing hearing. It's not his chance to get his job back. Normally, where those are used are, you know, someone's in the community, there's all these allegations made that they were stealing stuff or something really bad, and everybody in the community knows and has heard the supervisor's side of it, but hasn't heard that person's side. So they get to go in front of the supervisors, tell their side of the story, and that's basically it. But I don't know what a name clearing really accomplishes for him, because it's not like, oh, there's these great rumors going around. I think it actually probably hurts him more than anything, because nobody even really knew he was terminated. Now you request his name. So basically, I'm just requesting.
Is that a closed hearing then?
Well,
Unless he asks
he
for it?
can request for it to be closed, but then that makes no sense, because the purpose is, it's a name clearing hearing for him to tell his side to the public, so it makes no sense to close it.
But,
Yeah, he can request it, and you can either say okay, or you can deny it. I mean, that's up to you.
can we each individually either contact you or Sheriff Beaver to find out why he was terminated? So we have I mean, if we're having this
Yeah,
hearing, we ought
yeah.
to really
Well,
know what's...
The next thing on the agenda is discuss pending lawsuits, and I'm gonna recommend that you go into closed session on that. And if you want to, I can just say, I'm gonna recommend that we go into closed session on both Knievel and the pending law, the existing lawsuit against the county right now. I recommend going into closed session on both of those.
Do we have a tape recorder?
Yeah, I
Lowell?
told him,
Okay.
told him to get one. I also-
Maybe the easiest thing to do is for all of us to go in the other room, or do we clear the room here?
Doesn't matter to me. We need to follow the procedure, though.
Need a motion to go into.
First, we have to make a motion to go into closed session under Iowa Code Section 21.5, Sub 1, Sub C, which is to discuss strategy with counsel on matters that are presently in litigation, which one is, or where litigation is imminent. I've also got a letter from his attorney, too, where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the government body in that litigation. Need to have a motion and then a roll call vote, and a record kept of each person's vote.
Make a motion that we go into closed session on these two lawsuits.
Under
Under
21.5.
21.5 subsection 1 subsection C.
Second, further discussion. Hearing none, Voigtlander.
Aye.
Walk. Aye, motion carried.
Okay, so we can go back.
Now we move to come out of closed session.
Second, further discussion. Hearing none, Voigtlander.
Aye.
Walk. Aye, motion carried.
So basically, what was discussed in closed session, and this should be part of the minutes, 8:50. Discussion on a pending lawsuit against Mitchell County and a current lawsuit against Mitchell County were discussed, and no action was taken in the closed session. Now, Mr. Knievel, you want to give me a date for a close, for his name clearing hearing.
Any one of our,
So August, what is today?
25th.
August 6th?
December 31st.
They have to have it within 30 days.
Oh.
August 6th, 9 o'clock.
Yeah. That's fine.
All right.
why don't we make it 9:30, then Richie
Okay.
doesn't have to
Okay.
run another $200 an hour man.
Okay.
Oh, put that one there. There you go. There's a good over the paper.
What's his correct spelling, his last name?
Knebe,
Yeah, okay.
Kevin with an I. You had asked me and Brian McPhail to come up with a guarantee for Stacyville Economic Development Building, a loan. Brian's come up with some stuff. I want him to delete 2 paragraphs. I haven't heard back from him on that. I don't know how much of a rush that is, but not a rush.
I don't think it's a rush.
I'll just wait until he gets hold of them on those 2. If I had more than that, that might be all I have. That's all I have is county attorney.
Supervisor Bookwinder, do you have anything for the county attorney? And I have nothing, so we will move to item 4, action on rural improvement zone request.
I will move down to my private citizen seat. I just have some, I know one of your concerns was about a lake, and I went, printed this off, and I'll give you that, and that can be part of the file. I also have consents from Vanden Avens to be, and then I went and found in Iowa an old case, State versus Jones, which is 122 Northwestern Reporter, page 241, which talks about lakes. And it says, to constitute a non-navigable lake, no particular depth is essential, nor is it necessary that the water cover the entire bed at all seasons. It is enough that the body of water has well-defined banks filled during portions of the year. Basically, it talks about that this lake is 18 inches to 5 or 6 feet deep, and they considered that a lake. That says there's no particular size, but some say it has to be at least 5 acres, and I think ours is 7 or 9, I don't remember for sure, but either Mark or Dave said last week how many acres it was, and it was bigger than what the definition is there. It meets all the other qualifications. It's got a basin. So that's all I have. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Well, I don't, it's been quite a grueling information fact-finding. As to lakes, ponds, I mean, there's definitions all over the world. I mean, they call the Atlantic Ocean a pond.
And I like this, I'll just read you this. I like this quote, hopefully I can find it. Talks about how you use the word pond and lake. One textbook illustrates this point with the following. In Newfoundland, for example, every lake is called a pond, whereas in Wisconsin, almost every pond is called a lake. So,
As to whether or not it's a lake or a pond or a water feature or whatever, it's what it is. But I guess what we, under the code section 357H, the first one is that it needed to be a private lake development from the get-go, and it never was.
no, I don't think so.
If you look on the plat, it shows that they had a turnaround and a river access. Well, that's no longer there.
What do you mean the river access is no longer there?
Well, maybe it's still there. Yeah, I think it is. Looks like
Oh,
on the
there's,
picture.
go down on any Saturday or Sunday during the year, and there's usually 10 cars parked there, people we don't know that are getting in and out of canoes on the
But when this was all developed, there was nothing said about a private lake. I mean, so under that, it doesn't fit 357.1 as it being a private lake development.
We have to petition for a private, that's what we're petitioning for, is a private. You can't be a private lake development until the Board of Supervisors grants it, so it doesn't say when you have to petition for that.
You never had a lake.
Well, I guess if you're saying you're not going to approve it, that's what you're saying.
Well,
I mean, there's no more, if you're not going to approve it, just say we're not going to approve it.
Well, I would move to approve.
I guess I would move not to approve, so we're at a stalemate here.
Okay? And it dies for lack of second. Thanks, Mark. Item 6, permission, let's see, we're down to item 6. aren't we? Permission for Bridges Mentoring Office to move to the annex building.
Krista Weinberg's here.
Hi.
She is
Morning.
making that
Morning.
request.
Well, I think as everybody knows, I'm already halfway, Bridget's already halfway into the annex building. We have an agreement with Mitchell County Economic Development to help cover the office while I was working only part-time. I was in the office about 12 hours a week. I moved my office in there, but Derry Reynolds, who's my assistant, stayed in our Savior's Lutheran Church. Now, Mitchell County Economic Development has hired a new person to cover, and I'm done at the end of this week. So she'll be working in the office 32 hours a week every week. Because of that, our agreement is ending between Economic Development and Bridges Mentoring. So I'm kind of in a limbo right now of moving back into the church office, which Derry and I share one room. And we're kind of becoming known as being a Lutheran services program, and we're not. We're our own program, and we accept any religion, so that doesn't matter to us. So we have talked about, and it kind of came up with Brenda first, the possibility of Bridges actually moving fully into the annex building, where we would be able to each have our own office, plus then having conference room space or whatever else we would need. So that's, I guess, what our proposal is. The main thing for us is that at our Savior's Lutheran Church, our only, I guess, thing that we pay there is we supply the internet service for the whole building. Where they're rent-free and utility-free. So we just would have, I guess, a budget constraint as far as how much we would be able to pay there, so that before we made the move, we'd just like to know, I guess, what we would need to contribute in order to move into the building.
Say that again, you had internet and utilities free?
We had rent and utilities free, so we paid the internet for the whole building
Oh,
for
I see.
everybody. And then we pay for our own phone service, which of course we would continue paying our own phone service and internet, of course, but it's more just about rent and utilities.
Well, I know Brenda's thinks it's a good idea that you folks move over there. We do have the room. You have any thoughts, Stan? I guess I'm not, I know you're a nonprofit. You rely on basically donations and
100% donations,
Right. I mean, so
fundraisers,
it's-
or grants.
and it is a very
It does,
worthwhile.
it does provide a good service.
Absolutely, yeah, I hear nothing but good about it, so.
I would have no problem if they wanted to, like I say, basically pay their own internet,
Right.
phone, that as long as they don't interfere with either MC, or planning and zoning right now, if there's a good fit, that they could just,
What, would you be taking another one of those off, like that storage room to north
Yes.
of your office or
Mhm.
something like that? Yeah.
That's
so-
what Brenda was thinking. So I know right now Shop on State has some things in there, but mostly it's old county items. So I think Dave was saying that he could probably just move them upstairs since there's so much space up there that's not being used. So I don't think that that would necessarily be an issue. And then we've also talked to the church about keeping our partnership open and us being able to do our board meetings there or events and stuff there. So I don't think, as you were saying, getting in the way of economic development or Mark Ross. I mean, we always have other places open to us to utilize as well, so.
Probably more accessible too.
Yeah, I mean, because that's one of the main things, is with the building not being handicap accessible, we have to be able to have other avenues open for us to make sure that we can, you know, be there for those people too.
Well, I guess I have no problem with you moving into the annex building and continuing with your telephone and internet, is what you
Yeah,
said you pay.
yes.
And then, you know, we got the space, it's not really, isn't that great a space, so it's amazing anymore.
Well, the next thing is, I know Derry, my assistant, came in yesterday, and she was wondering if there would be any problem if we wanted to put like a coat of paint in the hallway there, just like a neutral cream color to make it look a little less industrial. I mean, I think that it would be nice for all organizations involved if we just spruced it up a little bit. And that would come out of our pockets, of course, we're not asking for any money for that, but.
Sure.
Again, run it by Brenda.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it's really more her
Right.
Absolutely.
area.
And I asked her permission before I even painted my office, so it made quite a difference.
Yeah, I mean, she's not always there either, I mean, so. She
She's
did it on
hardly
a off
there.
day, when, you know, she doesn't have activities going on.
We would probably come in and do it on the weekend or
Oh,
on a
well.
Friday night. We don't want to interfere with anybody's work from it, so
Okay,
definitely.
I think consensus of the board,
yeah.
we can do a consensus of the board that will allow you
Thank
to.
you.
Yep.
I appreciate it. It'll make such a difference for us, so.
Yeah, well, that's
All right.
good, you got it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
County Engineer Brown, you're up.
Morning.
How are you today?
Good. So the DOT took bids last week on our box culvert for Hickory. One of the bids, the apparent low bidder, was Peterson Contractors, and they're out of Rhinebeck. Their bid was $150,275.35. The engineer's estimate was $150,815, so we did fairly well at that
So
estimate.
you're kind of bragging a little bit.
Had I been bidding, I would have lost. I'm in second.
275, 35.
No, I can't. My labor rates were a little high.
Who was the successful bidder?
The apparent low bidder, until we get
Oh.
contracts and anything else, the apparent low bidder is Peterson Contractors. The apparent high bidder was $100,000 higher, so there was a good spread of costs in there, so.
Or he didn't want the job.
Is that?
Either there, he didn't want the job. Well, maybe not.
So, this week, we will be putting some numbers to our FEMA disaster bridges to know which direction we want to go for, whether it be a box or a pipe. We've got some decent sized structures in there. I've got them all kind of hydraulically designed, so it's a matter of determining whether we're gonna do boxes or pipe, and then probably individual quotes to contractors, or do a lump sum, or a lump quote for all of them. So I'll be working on that this week. Other than that, our regular maintenance is going on. We are continuing to do the rock run, so we're not doing that. That's taking most of our time, so. I did, on a side note with the Tran Bridge, I had contact from Julie Bowers, with the owner of the building, that's working with her group to market the bridge and get some estimates on what it's gonna take to move and things like that. So he's working on that end as far as getting some information from her about whether they get rid of the bridge, whether they dispose of it, move it, scrap it or whatever. So there has been some interest in the bridge, so
Good.
One thing she brought up was community interest in the fact that it is an extra kind of bridge. Would the community be interested in keeping it preserved? So that's something she's working on with him, so until we know more.
You don't want a bridge?
I don't need another bridge. So at any rate, that's where it's at with her and that structure, so. That's all I've got for you this morning.
Oh, no,
That's,
we had a conversation yesterday, do you wanna,
well, you'd,
or I can go through it?
why don't you bring it up, that way we can.
We have discussed the possibility of using $1.5 million of TIF monies to make some rural road improvements. And yesterday afternoon, I went out and sat with Richie for about an hour. And we discussed various options, one being we have some dysfunctional bridges that possibly could be replaced in that. And after looking at the maps and so on, a lot of those qualify under either federal or state programs to where they would pay 80%, we'd only pay 20%. And it may be to our advantage, well, it would be to our advantage to really use the federal monies or state monies, whatever the case may be. And we have never borrowed ahead. This is something that I think I would be in favor of. There's a couple of those bridges, the one on, was it Jersey?
There's-
And the one south.
Yeah, there's one, there's several on, well, there's, in that bottom corner there's several bridges. The one thing about federal aid that I wanted to bring before we got any further was, we don't get the federal aid money very quickly, it takes a long time to build it. But at any rate, they allow you I think a 5-year borrow ahead type. But then that just puts you that much further behind to earn that money back before you can start using. I mean, if you borrow ahead 5 years, they're not gonna let you do a project until you start getting your money back into your balance.
These are the bridge funds.
Yes, the federal bridge funds.
Federal bridge funds. We use the federal bridge funds on the bridge south by Halverson.
Yep,
Okay.
and now we're using them on this Hickory
Right.
box culvert.
In the box culvert. But then we're talking about using those same bridge funds to fix these bridges down in the southeast part of.
The ones that qualify under the
Bridge, under the bridge.
under the bridge money is what we're looking
How
at.
much funds do we have built?
I'd have to look now after this letting, what the balance is projected to be.
Well, I know down in that quadrant of the county, or whatever you wanna call it, I mean, there is a lot of,
It's difficult to navigate in a couple of those sections where you can't go north because of a bridge, you can't go east
Right.
because of a bridge, and then you can't go south because of another bridge, so
we need to get those.
it's hard to work around.
Straightened out.
Some of those are structures that, and I think most of the traffic under there, they qualify for the money. There's a certain traffic count, I guess 25 vehicles per day, otherwise it wouldn't qualify. But there's some pretty big structures too down in that area that you'd have to, and maybe you could put boxes, and maybe you have to go a bridge, just depending on the hydraulics and the acres that are drained. So, that being said, you still gotta build up that fund as well. What then we had talked about then was, we have a lot of smaller structures that aren't on the federal registry at all. Smaller, box types, some small bridges that don't qualify for federal funds, that are narrow. We've got a lot of those older concrete wall type box bridges, whatever you wanna call them, that they're pretty narrow.
One lane.
Right, and we talked then about maybe should we go out and maybe document several of those that could be upgraded to allow our traffic, the farming traffic through those structures a lot better by widening them out, either by widening or replacing them with a different type of structure. Now, keep in mind that, this is a maintenance type thing versus, we've been borrowing TIF in the past for pavement, which is also overlays, which is kind of resurfacing, which is kind of maintenance too, so.
But we have a lot of these, I keep on, the one that I can always think of real easy is 390th, basically east of Grafton. I mean, when you get into Mitchell County, that first mile, of course, is hard surface, but then they got 4 miles of gravel past St. John's Church and that. And there are a lot of those little cement 2x2s or 2x4s where they were built 70, 80 years ago. When the road was narrow, they were a nice whatever. They don't anymore have the I don't know what you'd want to
wall,
call
the railings and things like that.
the railing and that.
They just have
But
a head.
all of a sudden, you know, you're driving down the road and here this little 3-foot indention is for 2 foot wide or 4 foot wide. And then the road goes back because it has, over the years, and of course, most of those were marked with some sort of,
Look at flexible bridge markers on them.
but you know, the wide machinery knocks those over, and so therefore, again, you have that danger, whatever, and
The spring ones.
talking to Richie, I mean, he said, you know, he estimated a lot of those could possibly be replaced for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. You know, they're the type that it's gonna be more work to try to put an extension on than what you could do with a decent culvert. And so, but we got scores of those kind of bridges throughout the county that cause problems for snow removal, because again, you don't always know where they're at. I think Charlie could attest to that type of thing, and it wouldn't hurt for us to, we really could make a lot of improvements. But if we're gonna do this, we're gonna have John Daniels, he has to have a location for each one of these, and we'd almost need to have this done by Thursday or Friday of this week.
Then, when I said 60 vehicles per day or more, that's gonna have to be increased to maybe 70 or 80, because when I started highlighting our map of traffic, that put a lot of miles in that map. We won't be able to cover that many miles in that short a time. So I told Jim to do a start at the 110 vehicles per day and down, and see what we can get.
Why on that urban renewal do we have to locate each one of these bridges? The last time we did that urban renewal, we put all county property and the road was on.
John Daniels is the one that's insisting on it,
Okay.
and
I understand.
And if he doesn't give his blessing, you don't sell the bonds.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean,
I guess maybe he's just covering himself too.
Yeah,
So, I mean.
yeah, he just wants to make sure that it's in.
We're not just borrowing $1.5 million to spend anywhere on anything. It'll have a paper trail where the money went.
We'll see what we can put together. I can't guarantee we're gonna have, you know, that's a short amount of time in the midst
Right.
of all this other flooding maintenance stuff we're trying to get, as far as Jim being out and trying to do all that stuff. So I'll see what he can get accomplished here before Thursday.
Well, does he have to have it by Thursday?
Because
I
you want
think we-
locations with dollar figures. I mean, this is.
No, we don't need dollar figures, all we need is locations. My understanding is, I mean, so again, if it's, I don't know exactly, I mean, they don't have like a 911 number on the bridge, but, so if it's on Jersey, the bridge on Jersey, quarter mile north of 320th Street, you know, that would be I would assume that would be a location.
We have an old inventory in binders and pretty much every culvert in the county. Then if Jim were to go out and say it's this one, we can go to that book then and find out its original size and such, but that's still.
No, I
But he can just probably just tell us which one it is based on
I think what
street
you can do,
and
I mean,
length or distance from an intersection.
I think what you can do is, again,
Or plot it on a map or something. And
we can have a lot of extra ones in there. I would plot as many as you can. We don't have to do them. I mean, and you wouldn't necessarily have to even drive out right now and see them. If you felt that, like to say again, let's just use 390, that, let's say there's 10 of those things on 390th between Balsam and Foothill. So you identify all 10, just so that it's in the urban renewal that we could do it. We got the $1.5 million then, doesn't mean we're going to do them. So, like I say, a couple hours of sitting there with your old book
Well,
and writing down whatever, because,
so then how long does a person have to utilize these funds after, I mean, okay.
What, you wanna borrow money if you're not gonna use it?
we're gonna use it.
Tomorrow.
We're gonna use, I mean, we'll be doing them next year, but,
All I can say is, we've got,
pardon?
You can borrow next year. Well, you wanna be paying interest and all this if you're not gonna be using it right away.
it was approached to me, we have culverts that we could repair, whether or not you guys wanna borrow for it, or we just do maintenance as we can.
Because your fund is in pretty good shape right now. It's probably the highest it's been in years,
Yeah,
maybe ever.
and it might be nice to be able to buy equipment with that money, which I can't use tip dollars for, or
Because
anything else,
taxpayers
but.
may say, you've got all these funds there, what are you gonna use it for? Why are you taxing us?
But,
If that balance is up there.
yeah, and that balance is great to have in case FEMA never comes in and says, we're gonna help you with some damage. That's nice, that's why we carry a balance, but at any rate,
I think
I,
there's a point where you gotta be in a range.
that's great. I'm not disputing that at all.
No, I'm just saying, it's,
There was an offer on the table to borrow money for maintenance. If you guys choose to borrow the money, I can find a place to spend. That's not,
We know.
I'm not begging for it by any means.
What, would you get private contractors if you don't have to go through the DOT? You could.
Well, this is just regular maintenance.
This
We
is,
don't have to
this
go
is,
through
yeah, we
some
don't
big
have to
bid
go through
process.
DOT, and yeah, we can hire, we can hire, doesn't matter,
I mean,
Kleckner
You'd throw
or
quotes out
Pops
and-
or Mayors or all of them and replace, yeah, we could be doing it this fall if,
It would all depend. I mean,
would you have to do a lot of engineering on these bridges?
well, it depends on if they're bridge or
Just-
box. You just recalculate the hydraulics for what's
Right.
there now and replace it with something different that you could extend or widen. It was approached to me and we sat down and we discussed it. I said, well, here's what we could do with it if we got it. I'm not begging for it.
no, I understand that, but we do have issues with these indented,
And we fix them as we see them. I mean, if the structure, and what typically happens is if they're in good shape, we don't fix them until they're defunct, you know? So, yes, I have a healthy balance. I know that. It'd be nice to buy some equipment, but that's, that's all in whatever we need to do. It's up to you guys what you guys want to do. I mean, Stan approached me on it, and I just figured, well, if this is what you guys want to do, we can find places to use it.
Well, how soon could you burn $2.5 million?
I don't know. Depends on what we find. Let me ask this, and you probably know this too, if it's TIF, if it's put in this whole plan, does that mean that money is borrowed then, or not borrowed? Or is it not being, do you not pay the interest until you use it, or how does that work?
If we bond, we pay interest.
Okay, so it's bonding for it and using the TIF to pay the
because
bond.
we had to do that on those roads.
Right.
Yep.
sell the bonds and we put it in.
It'd be nice to have a little bit more time to
Mhm.
put something together so we have an accurate idea of how much it's gonna cost. Maybe it's not 1.5 million. But if you guys want something that quickly,
Well, do we need something that quickly?
Well, we can do a separate, I mean, the whole thing was, we were gonna try to do the whole thing as part of,
I know,
with balance.
but down because
And-
of the interest rate and everything.
And then we,
Who knows where that's
on
going.
paper, we separate the two out. I mean, this is balance share, this is our share. So if we're doing a $4 million bond issue or whatever it is for balance, it becomes a 5.5 instead of trying to do two smaller. That was the whole,
Yeah, you know, when this first thing came up, it was about flood damage, and I didn't see any need
Well,
to borrow for flood damage, but, I mean,
when do we have to do this for Valley?
well, again, they wanted this done, basically in 2 weeks to hold the hearing.
Keep them separate.
Do one week, one the next? Would that make it be a problem? That way then, even in the paper, and there's some
Balance sees
separate.
that, they made it.
Well, that seemed to be the tripping point for them. that They don't like commingled with our,
that's, you know, this
Our
is
borrowing.
entirely your guys' decision.
Yeah.
This is
And
not
they-
something
they
that
want
I
theirs-
approached you
their
guys
borrowing
with,
to
this
be
is something you
separate.
guys were thinking of doing, so.
well, then that gives you more time to get.
Well, it's gonna take time, I mean, and to try to do this in 3 days or 2 days is
Well,
really
why
tough.
don't
By the time you
Let's
rush,
do
you
it
miss
separate.
something.
Okay.
Well,
Then
whether you
we
miss
can
something.
proceed with the ballot thing today in 2 weeks, and we'll let John know not to worry about the,
Well, tell them
Until-
keep it on
until,
his
uh,
radar, but,
yeah.
so we just need, when we get to it, to do the balance.
That was his email, we need clarity on this.
Yeah.
We'll still look at that stuff and we've got ideas of where stuff's bad anyway. Not bad enough to cause public issues, but stuff that could be improved
It should be.
to better the traffic, yeah.
Yeah, this is Dan.
So,
Yeah. John, can I have you call our supervisor number, and then I can put you on speaker? Nope, not now, we're just talking about the roads thing, and, yeah, now's a good time, so 641-832-3942, extension 2. Okay, you bet, thanks. That was good timing,
You set some up?
yeah,
I want to talk to Craig
sure, yep,
about that, you know what?
yep. Yeah, John? Okay, I'm gonna put you on speakerphone here.
Shannon Paul.
Joel stepped out of the room just for a minute, and
That's
so,
what I'm thinking.
but hold on.
Yeah, no
I don't
problem.
know.
Oh,
Just let me know
Not
when
for
it's
sure,
back.
but maybe.
okay. Basically, well, I can give you a little bit of update here. Basically,
So
we
sheriff there thought maybe they heard I was in town.
talked
but-
about whether or not we want to try to do the bridge thing along with the Vallon thing, or whether or not we should make that a whole separate issue. We do have a number of, like you say, very little small bridges, culverts and that we'd like to replace. You know, they're basically short, where they were built 80 years ago. You know, in the meantime, the roads have expanded, they've widened out, and of course, little bridges, culverts haven't. So that's pretty much what we wanted to be able to do. And you want those identified, is that correct?
Yeah, let me share a couple of things with you that are in my head. I've visited with Jeff about them and corresponded want to, and I'm not speaking for Northland, but I think Jeff would be okay with me saying this. Having witnessed what they're capable of doing in terms of running clear and accurate reports and making allocations, I would strongly advise we continue down the road of doing as few separate credit facilities as possible to meet these various needs of the county. And I understand very clearly, and I just have a great desire to make sure that we are providing very accurate, timely, and transparent financial data to any corporate interest that we wind up partnering with either now or in the future as a county. But I want to emphasize, we've got the capabilities with Jeff's help to be able to do that as easily by doing a single bond issue with multiple purposes and having him do allocations and then running reports based on the allocations, as we would have the ability to do it if we did separate borrowings for different purposes. In my mind, all the separate borrowings are going to wind up doing is costing you folks more money. And I think we'd all rather avoid that if possible. I understand if we get backed into a corner and somebody really feels like we have to go a different direction, it's not like I'm going to have some massive moral objection to it. I just wanted to let you know from the outset, my bias is very much that it's going to save you money and we can wind up with just as effective of communications by keeping the number of separate borrowings that you do down to a minimum. And frankly, we're already headed down the road of having to do several just because of the way tax exemption and taxability is going to wind up breaking out and some of the timing. You know, we've already done two, a short term and a long term, and we probably have two up ahead of us. So that's one thing I wanted to say. The other, getting more specific to the bridges, roads, and culverts, it sounds to me, Stan, from what Jeff reported and from what I saw from your correspondence, that we probably have a mix. That there are some roads, bridges, or culverts that need to be repaired, and they were in the past, maybe even this year, disaster affected, flooding or what have you. And that some part of the projects that need to be undertaken probably fit into that category. Probably have even more of those kinds of damage, disaster-related projects, but then you've got FEMA grant money possible for relief on those, and you don't want to wind up missing the opportunity to get the federal assistance that you would be eligible for. And so I get that. As a consequence, it sounds like there are other bridge, road, highway, culvert projects that are not related to disaster. So let's treat them separately. First, I would have you folks, and Jeff concurs, just go ahead and adopt the resolution that I've provided you that would set the date for a public hearing early August, the 6th, I think, on doing geodebt in an amount sufficient to cover the remainder of the Valent Sewer project needs, and also then picking up some amount, I think roughly 1.5 million of bridge, culvert, highway improvements related to disaster. You're not going to do any harm by vesting the county with that latent authority to move forward up to the 12 million on those purposes. So that would be the first step. Go ahead and get that adopted. The second is we've got to figure out in terms of immediate financing needs, are there projects out there that don't fit the disaster damage related bill? That perhaps we would have to rely on some other authority under the code to do the GO borrowing. And more than likely, we would need to rely on the urban renewal law to help us get to issuing those bonds without having to go to a full-blown election. So we've got to take a look and come up with a list of where those projects are happening, how much those projects are going to cost, identify whether or not those projects were related to a disaster in the past or not, and then kind of analyze what we are and aren't moving forward with. Once we've got that list, we can make a determination conclusively of the non-disaster related road, bridge, culvert projects. Which ones of those are already in the urban renewal area? Do we feel like we've done the sufficient job of identifying those projects to stay in compliance with the urban renewal law? We may very well need to do an urban renewal plan amendment before we would even have authority to start moving forward with a process to do a reverse referendum to issue those bonds. So, long way of me saying, first step, adopt the resolution we sent. And then second, work with your county engineer, I suppose, to compile a list of all the projects, road, bridge, culvert projects that are on the table right now, and kind of do that individual analysis. Where are they at? What will they entail? How much will they cost? And does each project, yes or no, relate to some, flooding or other disaster in the past?
Basically, our, under this $1.5 million, they really wouldn't be part of the flood. Because like you say, that would be covered under FEMA, and we didn't want to, we want to use FEMA money where we can use FEMA money, so, no, this would all be bridges, culverts that are either dysfunctional, by dysfunctional meaning they're not adequate, maybe they have weight restrictions on them, or they're too narrow. That would be the two requirements that why we want to replace them, because they do have weight restrictions, or they're not wide enough anymore.
Okay, so literally now we're saying none of the projects are flood related.
Correct. And when we first talked about this, we didn't know if we would be able to get FEMA money or not. That's why we...
Right. No, I understand. And it certainly makes sense to hold open that possibility. Unless somebody is advising you that having authority to borrow money would somehow interfere with your ability to get FEMA funds, I would still just have you go ahead and adopt that resolution as it's been provided today. I'll give you an example. What happens if you get your FEMA award, but they want to do it on a reimbursement basis? You may welcome having the authority to go and do short-term financing with the bank to cover the initial construction costs, and then you repay that as FEMA does their reimbursement. So again, I would go ahead and have you adopt that resolution as provided today, even though you may never do long-term GO financing for the flood-damaged roads that are out there. In fact, that'll be your goal, is to never have to borrow for that, because hopefully FEMA will come through.
Right.
But I think you're better off having the ability to pursue it if you have to. So stay the course accordance with that resolution, I'd go ahead and have it adopted. The next question is, of the projects that you know you want to undertake that are not flood-related and that we're going to need to borrow for, we do kind of need to take a look at those projects and understand how they relate to your existing urban renewal plan, the geography, and whether or not those projects have gotten any kind of specific mention previously, et cetera.
I think what, and again, I'm not an attorney and so on and so forth, but I think what we did do in the past is we included, all of the roads in Mitchell County. Here a couple, 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And as we included all the roads, we also, part of the road was the bridge. Or we included, I guess, the highway. When you really look at the code, they talk about the roadway portion of the highway or whatnot. But I mean, everything from fence line to fence line is considered a highway, and I think that's what we basically done was included all of the right-of-way, which would include all of the bridges in the county. Now, we didn't specify, each bridge per se.
Right, and nor would I have expected you to. Let me give you just a little bit about how the law has changed on us. Last year, the state legislature adopted an amendment to the urban renewal law that now, unlike previous years, it now requires that the county adopt an amendment to the urban renewal plan to specifically identify each distinct urban renewal project that is to be undertaken. And I'll take it outside of your context and I'll give you another example just to help illustrate kind of the issue that we're having to wrestle with here. The city of Crescent over in western Iowa, several years back, they had us help them do an amendment to their urban renewal plan to add all of the street right-of-way in the city because they were having to do a lot of work on completely dilapidated water lines. I mean, they were leaking more water than they were providing to their customers. And so we added the whole network of street right-of-way so that it was very clear that they'd have authority to undertake the upgrades to their water system. And that was the best way we knew to cover where those water lines were. And so they went about their business. If they called me today from Crescent and said, John, we need to now do a turn lane on Main Street to accommodate some new business development, do we really need to amend our plan? We already said that all of the street right-of-way in Crescent is contained in the urban renewal area. Because of the legislature's action in 2012, I would tell them, yeah, we really do need to do an amendment to your plan to specifically declare that we're undertaking the Main Street turn lane project and give some kind of at least brief description of what that project's going to entail, how much TIF we're going to use for it, roughly when it's happening, where it's happening, those kinds of basic facts. So it's a little bit of a sticky wicket, Stan. I know that we clearly added all of the right-of-way.
Well, John, let me ask this. So if we go ahead and we approve of, like you say, the resolution and that today, in the meantime, let's say that we give Richie 3 weeks to come up with his various bridges and that, so he can identify them, come an estimated cost and so on. And then we set that one for hearing. But if we don't issue the bonds right away or try to sell the bonds right away, we still then later on could do the bonds as one issue. I mean, even though we held 2 hearings, we could do one bond issue.
And they could be combined, yes, absolutely. The only question is going to wind up becoming a when do we run out of money?
Right, I mean, if we had to, that way, if we had to on the Vallon project, push come to shove, if we had to, we could go ahead without it, or.
If we had to, yeah, and that's why I wanna keep you moving.
Yeah, I think we understand now where we're at with that, and I think we can, can you, 3 weeks, is that adequate, Rich?
I'll give it the college try.
Okay, if we come up with those, identifications on the various bridges, costs, and so on and so forth, do we send that all down to you then to make the amendment for the urban renewal, or does Kathy do that, or?
I think you could probably safely send it to both of us. I'll communicate with her about, who's gonna draft the actual amendment.
Okay,
When do you folks meet next?
we meet weekly.
30th.
So, I don't know when that list is going to be available, but I would have no problem kicking off this urban renewal amendment action as early as next week's meeting if you wanted to. Even if the list wasn't in a crystal clear format, we could go ahead and have the board take action to begin the urban renewal amendment process, and the list could keep getting worked on, through next week.
Sure.
Before we would need to be, maybe really finalizing in that first week of August, So,
So do you want to have that as early as the 6th, or do you want to, like you said earlier, the 13th? Because John has this prepared for the 6th of August, and you were talking earlier about doing this the 13th.
Yeah, no, we would,
The public
what he's
hearing.
talking today is doing just what's here, the 6th.
Okay,
And that would be a separate, and,
for the 12 million.
but for the urban renewal, we'd probably have to give Richie 3 weeks. So it would probably be
13th,
10,
20th,
10, 6, 13.
13th?
That we'd start, and like you say, then if we had to, a few more days or whatever, but we'll try to get that all to you by the 13th. We'll put it on for setting a date on the 13th. And we only need, what, a 4 and 20?
for the public hearing notice, yes.
So then we could do the public hearing on the 20th.
The kicker in there, though, is not the hearing notice, it's the consultation session with the school district,
Right.
or in this case, probably multiple school districts and maybe some of the cities, depending on where we're going with all this. That one has to be held 2 weeks in advance of the public hearing,
Oh, okay.
the consultation. So usually, if we started on the 13th of August, probably be looking at the I'd have to count days, but maybe the 3rd of September for the hearing. For comfort, the 10th for sure.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have any problem with, ever with our school districts and that, but still, like you say, we gotta go through the process,
Yeah,
so.
we do, unfortunately.
Well, why don't we let that go at that rate then? How's that? And like I say, if we don't need to borrow the money here right away in August, then we can marry the two together and, for at least issuing the bond.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else for John?
John, on that other issue we were talking about yesterday,
Yeah,
it didn't go anywhere today.
okay.
One board member made a motion to approve, one made a motion to not approve, so.
Well, it died for lack of a
Died,
second.
well, it died for lack of a second, but it's probably, we probably haven't heard the last of it.
I'm betting not. That's probably a safe assumption.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the update.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Yep. All
Okay,
right.
folks, appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good day.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
John.
you too.
Okay.
Bye now.
We got Sheila and the group here, we're 15 minutes late on that one. Do you have a phone number, Joel?
Yep, I can give it to you.
Oh.
Before we get started though,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I asked the case managers, we had done evaluations last week, staff evaluations. And somebody had mentioned, we haven't met the supervisors maybe or haven't seen them for a long, long time. So I said, why don't you come up next week? We have a staff meeting today. Because I'm not even sure if you've met, especially the girls from New Hampton. So if they can kind of, whatever, say their name, which office they're out of, introduce themselves to you, so at least you can
Okay.
put a face to the name.
I'm Julie Malashewski, and I'm out of the office here in town, Mitchell County.
I'm Wendy Burgart, and I am in the New Hampton office.
Terry.
Yeah, we don't know her.
And I'm Bobby Jo O'Donnell, I'm in the New Hampton office.
Megan, yeah, and then Stan Walk is here, Stan's the chair this year, and Joel Hoaglander. So
We hear your names, but we don't always have a face to go with.
so that's, we said it was nice, that was a good suggestion or request from somebody, so that's why I had to come up today, so. Okay, so if you wanna call, I called Chickasaw and said you guys are in the middle of something, so they were gonna be a little bit late.
We gotta go outside the box here.
So when you're ready for the number,
Okay, go ahead.
641-394-2100.
Yeah, see, this is Joel Hoaglander from Mitchell County. We have a conference call with the Chickasaw board. Patch us through and we'll put you on speaker. Okay.
But the trade, at the big crop, there's a long way to go this year in any event. BOS certainly somewhat within.
Not even a good song playing, just with.
Could we get some grocery store music?
Good morning, Mitchell County here.
Good morning. Let me put you on speakerphone, okay?
Good.
Good morning, this is Rick.
Good morning, Mitchell County here. We have on this end, we got Supervisor Voigtlander, myself, Stan Walk, Auditor Lowell Tesh, and Sheila and her whole staff.
So if you're wondering where they went, that's where they went.
On this side, we have supervisors Anderson, Byrne, Zoll, myself, Holthouse, and County Auditor Tony Knoll.
Okay. Yeah, okay, well, this is Sheila then, and you guys have the agreement there as well. I kind of talked about it briefly a week or two ago for the THERAP, the electronic records program that we're in a pilot project with several other agencies in the region. And what we need is to have the agreement signed by our 28E board to go into this contract for these electronic records. The first part of the agreement, County Social Services is kind of the overhead for the electronic records. That's who the contract is kind of with. So we're doing like a subcontract kind of thing with County Social Services for us to be using it as well. And also the second one then is a business associate agreement. And that's something that is an agreement with THERAP, which is the agency that does the electronic records. And that's because of HIPAA and privacy rules. Because it will be confidential information that is going to be on this system. So they need to sign it, we need to sign it, and have that agreement in place. Are there any questions on it at all, or?
I'm not hearing anything on this end. I think you did a good job going over it last week with us, Sheila.
Okay, thanks.
I don't have any questions.
No, we're good here, I think. So we need a motion basically, and a second to, and a vote in order to authorize the chairs to sign the service agreement.
I would make that motion, Oaklander and Mitchell County.
Seconded, Burns, Chickasaw.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Burns. Okay, did you get that on that end where Jason Burns seconded?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Is there any discussion on this end? Don't have any on this end.
Well, we'll call the question on this end. Volklander?
Aye.
Walk, aye. Motion carried on this end.
I'll do the same on this side. Zoll, Burns, Anderson, and Holthouse, all eyes on this end.
Okay.
Okay, can I go over what else is on the agenda to talk about, anything?
So,
Okay, can I talk about a couple of other things while I have everyone together? I had sent the email out. Stan, did you get that email and read to you in regards to the cost report I had to redo? DHS has changed the way that case management will be reimbursed. And we can be reimbursed 23% administrative costs. So when I had redone ours, it came up to be $28,719 extra over the 23%. So instead of our rate, which came out to be $116.88, it was cut down to $112.92. So that's where that 28,000 something comes in. So that's gonna be something to where I'm gonna have to cut some of the administrative services. One of the things, we did have someone come into the Osage office every Friday, and she has left, and we're not going to replace her. And that's maybe $4,000 or $5,000. I haven't really plugged all those numbers in yet. We had our secretary in the New Hampton office had left, and I was going to put the ad in the paper and post it. However, after getting the cost report done, I decided to wait for the time being, because secretarial staff is a pretty big cost, and that's where a lot of agencies have been talking, is at a place to be able to cut some costs for administrative. I've also been in touch with Alan McKee and Howard County Case Management. We actually had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and some serious discussion about maybe all of us counties combining under a 28E, which would therefore as well cut administrative costs. And there might even be some other counties as well interested in that. And also, CCMS through ISAC, we pay them an administrative fee every month for technical assistance, and what that provides us, they come about every 3 months, they review our files. There's some trainings that we're allowed to attend. I really think that's something maybe that we should look at asking to leave that as well. We've been talking about it anyway in our case management administrator meetings in the region. And if we would send a letter now requesting an exception to policy to be able to leave them now, the way our agreement with them reads, we need to notify them in November if we want to leave them by July 1st of the next year. But being all these changes have gone on, I'd like to at least send a letter requesting the exception if they would agree to it or not. Megan and I do volunteer surveys with the state, so that really helps us to keep up on changes, build a relationship with the people involved in it. So I just really feel that we can have our needs met and still keep our quality program without having CCMS there. I mean, they do a good service, but I think that we're able to do some things, especially at the cost, because that's an administrative cost. So I guess I just wanted to really visit with you about that and kind of just get your blessings to pursue these things or any comments or thoughts, or, we're a real frugal agency anyway. We just do not buy that many new things, and, the staff is very good about making the best and the most use of all the equipment. So when it comes to equipment and that, I just don't really see where we can cut costs in that area, so.
yeah, that much equipment, do you?
We don't, no. I mean, and we even like some of our desks and it's old things we got from the shed, that still work. But, So, and with my cost, I did rearrange my expenses because I had a majority of it out of case management because we were reimbursed by Medicaid, you know, so then you want to, and I do quite a bit with the case management. Something else is the indirect costs. Some of the counties, they won't be getting that indirect cost back because that's administrative as well. You know, so all those different things we just really have to be taking a look at. So is it okay with you then if I send a letter to ISAC, CCMS, and also to pursue the talks with counties about maybe doing a 2080 to cut down the administrative?
I think it'd be fine myself.
Mitchell County thinks it's okay.
Yeah, here in Chickasaw, too, I think it's okay. I haven't shared that email sheet with the rest of the board.
And that's fine.
When I looked at that cost report, on those line items, there's not much movement. Unfortunately, the biggest expense is salaries and benefits and stuff like that, so.
Right. And thank heavens, you know, I mean, that is direct service for the case manager salary, that we want that to be a bit higher because then that allows our administrative costs to be a little bit higher, you know. So, I mean, there's some agencies, they're having $60,000, $100,000 to cut. You know, so in the realm of all that, at first it was looking like $45,000 for me, but then I was able to, there's some more things that I could add into the direct service cost to get it down. You know, and I'll just have to really keep a close look on things. I think for purchasing supplies, you know, I don't know if the counties have a really cheap, where a lot of people go in to get things much cheaper when it comes to paper and pens and those things. See, Mitchell does, so you know, I'm gonna look into things like that, just to see if we can't save some money that way. We'll scan more items instead of.
John's got a question or a comment, Sheila.
Pardon me?
John's got a question or a comment here.
Yeah.
Sheila, would you review again what ISAC does and how you would do it instead? What does ISAC do for us right now?
What they do for us right now is they come into our agency for 3 months, 4 months, and they'll like do some file reviews to see if the files are up to code and following the Chapter 24 rules that we are governed by. They attend a lot of survey exit hearings, and they keep up with the surveyors on what they're looking for, what needs to be done. So they do that every 3 months. And if we have some extra.
Do you often find anything that needs to be fixed?
Yeah, they'll find some things and have recommendations. However, Megan as well does file reviews, very thorough one. She does a wonderful job with it. And again, we have really good case managers. They know the rules. We just had a survey with just one minor deficiency, you know. We just have such a good organization. If we were struggling, if you were struggling in those kinds of things, it'd be a whole different story. But, you know, Megan does a great job with file reviews, and one of the girls even thanked her afterwards for being so picky because we had such a good survey. You know, and it does make a difference when you have someone who understands that stuff.
Was she reviewing the files from your office, from the Hampton office?
Yes, yeah.
And are you reviewing her files?
Well, occasionally, yeah. Yes, occasionally. But also what CCMS offers is trainings, and that's something that we would lose out on. Some of the trainings we wouldn't be able to go to if we're not members. But in our region, we talked about getting some different trainings together anyway for the regional case management people. So I just really don't see a problem, and I've talked to the staff, and they all agree. They feel we would do okay without them.
And this is Megan, John. We were just at a recent meeting just last week, and CCMS is actually having to do some cutting on their costs and that kind of thing, and they've talked about not coming out around to agencies as often as they had in the past. I mean, it might just be 1-2 times a year. So we probably in the future won't be seeing them as much as we had been, which is also important to know.
Yeah. Did you catch that, John?
I think I heard her say that ISAC's thinking about not coming out anyway.
Right,
Correct.
not as often, yeah.
As a way to cut their costs. But
Yeah.
there will still be some, but, no, never mind.
Well, And something else that I thought of, you know, there's some agencies, if they're doing okay with their administrative costs, they'll probably keep CCMS. And if they're in our region, and plus I know other case management administrators across the state, we communicate, you know, so we forward information on to each other as well. So if there's something really big that Isaac has found out that maybe we hadn't, we'll find out from another agency.
Sheila, if you combined other counties, you said you were talking to other case management, then wouldn't that cost be just once for the Isaac, CCM, whatever it is? If you had a bigger, larger 28E group, then you just have that one charge, right?
Yeah, true.
And you could all still go.
It'd be more people, you know, because they charge by the number of clients, so
Okay,
it's.
well then, how do you go now? Just you go, or, you know, when you go to their meetings?
It depends on what meetings they are. Like
Okay.
there's advanced case manager
right.
meetings, there's administrator, there's supervisors, there's different ones.
Okay.
So it depends on what the meeting is. They have a conference every year, which is very good, but that's open to anyone. So. Yeah. Well, and I can wait on the CCMS letter. Like I said, you know, I had really seriously considered letting them know in November, after your approval, of course, that we would not be their services after July 1st of next year. And you know, maybe some of these things will change anyway, but like I said, in the region, we just really felt that what we're receiving from CCMS, we can maybe do better as our whole group and build relationships with people from DHS who make the decisions and have all the information on changes.
So Sheila, what do you project you would save if we stop receiving that service?
Probably $6,000.
Okay, so that gets us down to about 20,000.
22.
And how do you propose to do the rest of it? Talk about combining with
Other counties, right, yeah, other counties. The indirect cost is something that some counties don't pay back. Some agencies don't pay back the counties. And that's what a lot have been talking about too, for the indirect cost. Like for us, it's about $10,000. And I probably ask for that not to be paid back.
secretarial time in both places?
Right.
And how much would you project that would save?
You know, John, I haven't crunched the numbers yet, but I'm hoping about 10,000,
Okay.
if not more.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to continue the discussion with that. I got some concerns about expanding the 28E group. But well, we'll see what you come up with.
Some, about what? Oh, expanding? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah, well, we'll continue talking and maybe it's a case where we can just do something, we're just administrative, I don't know. But we do need to cut some of those costs. I don't want the counties having to pitch in money. I know your general budgets are both, you know, tight enough as it is. So, and I'm hoping at least this year for sure that we won't need to do that. So I'll continue crunching numbers and I'll try to get a more accurate number. I just haven't had time to do that. So I can get a pretty accurate one for what it would say without CCMS and the secretarial stuff and all that, so. Okay, and then lastly, I wanted to bring up for a TCM agreement with County Social Services. It was in my file and I just ran across it yesterday, so it's just an agreement for us with County Social Services. We do provide case management to some county people, and then we're reimbursed from County Social Services. And we just need to have that signed by this board, and then the County Social Services Board will approve it and sign it. That's not anything really big. So I'll get that completed, and maybe next week we can just do a quick telephone conference to have that approved.
And it has to be on Monday. We're only meeting one day next week.
Okay. Well, I mean, even the following week, because our board meeting won't be until next month, because we have it tomorrow anyway, so the following week would be fine. So,
Okay.
okay. Any other questions or comments for me, or?
Nothing on this end.
I'm none.
Nope, we have none, so, basically, thank you kindly. Okay, well, thank you kindly.
Yep,
You guys have a good day.
and you too, Stan.
You bet. Oh, so I suppose we have to actually adjourn, don't we?
That probably would be a
Motion to
yeah.
adjourn.
Folklander moves to adjourn.
Got a second on this end by Anderson.
On this end, Folklander,
Aye.
Walk, aye. 2 ayes.
And this end, Anderson, Byrne, Zoll, and myself, all eyes on this end.
Okay, motion carried.
All right, have a good
You
day.
bet, you too. Okay, item 8, approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Been moved and second, further discussion. Hearing none, Bookland.
Aye.
Walk, aye, motion carried. Item 9, approve recorder's quarterly report fees.
Well, the state gets the lion's share, why is that?
Because they're the state. King always wants to throw a few crumbs to the peasants, you know.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the recorder's quarterly report fee of fees.
Second. Been moved and second, further discussion. Hearing none, Bookland.
Aye.
Walk, aye, motion carried. Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Right back.
Let's see, we approved recorder's training. Meetings attended then.
Okay. You ready?
Well,
See you later.
Friday went down to juvenile detention. That was a half-hour meeting, right, an hour for a half-hour meeting. But one of the. 2 hours, actually. Yeah,
Down and back.
yeah, down and back. As you know, the juvenile detention, the state's limited the number of beds, can't build any more beds. We have 15-bed unit for juveniles. Hopefully we don't, we used to have, I think it was like 30 or 27. The other side of the detention, they made the Crisis Intervention Center. That's through the CSS, where they take in folks who present at emergency rooms, and rather than putting in a full-blown $800 bed, they can go to this facility for $175 a day. Looking at the number of bed days that they've had since that time when they started, they've saved whoever, your insurance company, whatever, they've approximately $600,000 in hospital costs. So that's really taken off down there, and they're thinking about maybe opening up another section if the state will ever license it. Right now we're on a temporary license. So anyway, that was some pretty good news, and that's in the black. Went down to her on Thursday and went through our agenda, approved claims, whatever. Judy's gonna do the harassment training probably in October. They're coming up with a new safety manual. Chuck Goodman will be around all the counties to go over their safety training. Just pretty much standard stuff that day. So quite a bit of lasted 3 hours. Carl was there, and so, and we talked quite a bit about cases that which I can't talk about here.
sure.
Then Thursday night, went over to Prairie Ridge meeting. They were CARF certified for 3 years in all 5 areas of their program. That too was our regular meeting, and approved claims and whatever. So that was it. I'm trying to think. That was it, wasn't it?
Those 3?
I think those 3. If there was another one pops up, well, I had a meeting yesterday morning at the FMC landfill for surface water runoff. We had our engineer there, we had a neighbor from across the road. He's claiming that more water is coming from the landfill onto his land. We had the farm tile the year before, and I talked to Mr. Johans. He said that tile goes into a 12-inch main that runs across this gentleman's farm and travels all the way to a road ditch, which is probably half a mile away, or something like that. It's 12-inch and then it jumps up to a 14-inch. And he says in the spring, when we were getting all that rain, that was even full. So, but we also have our ponds, which we have to get dirt out of, and so we pump water from one pond to the other, which raises that pond, and that meanders through, goes through a culvert across the road. You're supposed to get into a stand-up intake, which he claims his waterway is always wet, but we haven't pumped any water, but somehow we're sending more water that way.
Isn't that what a waterway is for? It's for water?
But he's working on, with the Soil and Water in Howard County to rework his waterways, and we want to be good neighbors, so we all met. And we're gonna try to do something. We're gonna run a tile when we pump directly into our 12-inch, and hopefully alleviate that problem. So that was the other meeting I was at yesterday.
I didn't have
And then we
any.
did have one in the afternoon where we talked to John Daniels about other things, so.
I didn't have any, but had a mix-up anyway yesterday at the meeting I thought I was supposed to have in Des Moines is next week.
So you went all the way to Des Moines?
No, I didn't. I got down to Ellsworth.
Got to Ellsworth?
Halfway.
And what happened was Brenda mentioned she was gonna be on vacation this week and then whatever, but when she was talking to me last week, she asked, when are you available next week? Meaning she meant the week after her vacation. I thought next week meant this week. And so, in any event,
I'll tell you, I can tell you one, but I won't.
so,
Talk
but,
about embarrassing, but it was.
but, I guess if that's the worst that's happened, why? And I see that, watching the tube and that, there's just a lot of insurance companies that are having to give money back to clientele and this and that because they're basically have been overcharging them, kinda like what
I told you
what
about
really got happened.
happened over there, and they're gonna get another check.
And it's really not because of the goodness of their heart, it's because they were being overcharged according to, I mean, you know.
Prairie Ridge, I told you guys, they're gonna get another check. Now, tell me whose premiums those were?
They were.
Why wouldn't you be giving them back to the premium payer instead of to the service provider?
Well, they should have really, in a
Well,
way.
we kinda did, cause we gave everybody bonuses over there, you know, so. Somebody needs to look at that.
So, manure management plan updates?
Well, we have two of them, one from Larry Beeson in Union Township, and the other one is from Friesen Farms Northeast in section 30 of Burr Oak Township.
Okay.
Union was section 11 for Beeson.
Okay, so noted. Claims, have you had a chance
Yes,
to?
I make a motion to approve the claims.
Second. Been moved and second to approve the claims. Further discussion. Oaklander.
Aye.
Watts, aye, motion carried. Resolution setting date for public hearing on general obligation county purposes loan agreement. We have a resolution here in front of us. The date would be the 6th of August.
We're changing this one from July 23rd to the 6th.
No,
August.
No,
that's today.
That's the day that we're
We're not
setting.
changing anything. Gateway.
Oh, we're gonna go with this.
Yep, we're going.
The other was, we were discussing either going from the 6th to the 13th, but it'll stay as the 6th, so.
I make a motion then to approve setting the date of August 6th.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
And what time you want to do it?
don't matter to me.
What time is it on there? I think 9:30? I thought I saw that.
I thought you left it blank.
These are all blank on mine.
Okay,
I
well
didn't see
then,
any time.
Do it at 9:30?
9:30.
I don't think I've got anything down so far for that date,
we
except, well, take that back. That's when that Cabinet Knievel thing is.
Oh.
And he was at what time?
9:30.
9:30.
You want to do this earlier?
Yeah. well, let's-
8:45?
8:45 then.
Okay.
At 8:45, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and I second that. Further discussion? Hearing none, Booklander.
Aye.
Watt, aye, motion carried. Resolution setting date for public hearing on urban renewal plan amendment. And that also then to go ahead with it. I will move.
Any all second?
The date again would be the 6th of,
6th of August, what time? 9 o'clock?
How long would be here? There'll be much time on this, I guess hard to say. Could be with all that amount.
Well, the first one's valid, nobody's ever showed up for it.
well, let's put it 8:50.
Yeah, I don't care. I
We'll
mean,
roll right through
I'd give a few more minutes than that, that's kind of,
I'd go 9 o'clock.
yeah, I'd say 9 o'clock, just in case.
them. Okay?
We could adjourn one and move into the other and then go back.
Oh, God.
Well, I
Follow
mean, it's,
that.
I don't know, we've already signed the agreement to build this thing, so we pretty much got.
We have, I mean, yeah, if this was a brand new thing and so on, but we've had how many hearings unbalanced so far, that's why.
Right, I mean,
It's something new.
2 years ago,
Now, let's just somebody that wants to come back and restate what they stated 2 years ago
I'm trying to think, what they restate.
about payment, where the money's coming from. You know,
Oh,
those people
okay.
may want to come back and give their speech
Yeah,
again,
yeah, all right, I got you.
in case you want to have time for speeches.
Yep, that's fine.
Well, we were gonna give 30-second speeches.
Unless you limit the time, because you may have those again.
Been moved and second, further discussion? Walk, aye. Booklander.
Aye.
Motion carried. Anything else for the good of the cause? Well, I give first response, see if we can make it up, unless you wanna go out and take a look at,
In the park?
yeah, okay.
It needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the concerns are that Adam has, so.
One thing I can think of is making that turn, you know, but actually that can be reworked easy.
If there's nothing else for the good of the cause, well, yeah, we gotta sign the book yet. Alright. Nothing else for the good of the cause, we will stand. Okay.